Good evening, everybody. We are back again, another live stream. And currently I'm fiddling around because we are creating Go2-X, the NKS compatible version. So it's a little bit big, you see, because of my screen size. Go2 appears very big. But here you see machine 2. I did not try yet in complete control. But here you can see you can select the presets. These are all the new ones which I'm tagging now. And for instance, we have new ones from Mark. You need to double click. So what I do now is selecting the presets in the NKS system. So I don't use the manager or the screen here. It pops up, you see it. And the fun part is then you have all the pages now where you can control the parameters. So we set out a range of parameters you can control. And the first one I picked is wave A and wave B. Okay. There's a little interruption if you change from waveform. Logic, because it needs to load it. So maybe we should maybe I should put that on a different page. But, so clicking again, let me take another preset. Well, I mentioned that we have this general cool thing that you can use the ARP magics, the step numbers, and the loop start dynamically. So these are on the first page on this complete control or machine screen. So if I open now more Go2, so there we see Go2. You can see my keyboard. This is the dial. You see in the upper screen, you see the keyboard. So this dynamic parameter, which you also can do here, down here. But you see, if I turn this dial, the dial down here also moves. So it's connected. So I made a layout. So page 1. So we're working on this. Page 1, you see, you can select the waveform. I'm not sure if I keep this one, because if you change from waveform and you don't play, it doesn't matter. But you have a little interruption if you go to different waveforms, because it needs to load in the waveform. But so page has the morphing, which is a little fader here. The morph mode you can change. Sub oscillator you can change. Step numbers I discussed. And then of course you go to the next page. You have some additional features, but also the XY position. Using 2 dials. So maybe I should have these two on the first page. Maybe it could be an idea to have the XY instead of the waveform. So I need to check that tomorrow. So we work in progress. You see the third page is then the filter. Filter envelope. So this is an ARP sound. Let's see. So it jumps back to page 1. Then we have the high pass filter. This is used in this preset. So I can open it. Oh no, it's off. So I can put it on. Yeah, so then if you go to the next page, the amp section for the main envelope, the LFO, then the free LFO 1, and then you can control the chorus. second page, you can control the delay. And even the reverb. And then you can control the play mode, the unison you can control. And then we have several pages where you control the tuning of the ARP sequencer, the velocity setting each step. Then the chord you can change also by using the dial, the chord. So if I go here to, and you look here, let me see if I can show you both. Down here you see changes the chord setting here. You see? So these are the pages which we are going to do. And so the R page, and these are the parameters you can control that. And you see in the upper keyboard, you see here the Go2-X icon and a little screen of Go2-X in my complete control keyboard. So it's work in progress. What is a lot of work for me essentially is that I need to tag all the presets. So you have its own tagging. Of course, John made a converter which converts all tagging into the tagging of NKS, and then it helps us to finalize it. So I did not succeed loading Go2-X in complete control because that user interface totally changed. So I'm not sure how it works. The only disadvantage of using this system is that you load in your Cubase, you load machine or complete control. So you load a host inside a host, which makes that if you go with your song to somebody else, you also need to have a complete control. But it's a nice system, and the advantage is that if you have complete control, you can scroll by using, say, okay, I'm looking for piano. Then it scrolls. You can scroll and search on particular sounds, not only in our products, but all the native instrument products and all the compatible products which are NKS. So you cross through many other plugins which you have installed, which are then NKS. So everybody, good evening. Okay, so we go to Go2-X in a second, but I first wanted to talk a little bit still about the synthesizer which I purchased 2 weeks ago. I did get it after 44 years. I had huge response on internet on this posting that after 44 years, I could get hold of a CS30. And of course, people think, okay, why buy such an old machine? Well, it's pure nostalgia, because essentially for creating music, most likely I will not use it. It's more for me as being a synth geek. And although I get a MIDI interface for it, which is very cool, which is available, a MIDI interface which makes that you also can connect velocity to the two filters. And so let me show you pictures. I did had it in my studio. It still needs a fix, because what is the problem seems to be, and that my C30 has that as well. Here's a picture of the picture I also posted on Facebook. This is on the right-hand side in the studio. So I sit, if you look at my mouse, I sit here, and you see my mixer, which is a 16-channel Mackie mixer. I need to patch, of course, once I want to play a synthesizer. But you see here is my audio interface for the laptop. You see here my old Korg MS-20 with my switching board. I once made a video about it with the SQ10. And when I was 15, I could choose between this setup, so the Korg MS-20 plus SQ10, or buy the Yamaha CS30. And I did purchase the MS-20 plus SQ10 because of the patching. It was far more versatile. So I had then a little bit more freedom in terms of the things you could do. And essentially now, after playing with the C30, especially sequencer still, of course, of the SQ10, is from the bass also very limited, but I made this switching board where I could go from 2 steps to 4 steps, which you find now also in bit 2 and Go2-X, that we use this old system which I figured out at that time on my Korg MS-20 and SQ10. You will find that in our plugins. So the idea at that time, you see here the little switches, you see my mouse, these little, not switches, but the outputs. So the cable goes into the switching board and I can go from 2 steps to 4 steps to 8 steps. And I had a little switch for it. Well, the sequencer of the CS30 you see here has only the option to do pitch. So you cannot control the filter or whatever with it. So it's a very basic sequencer. It looks cool. But this one has the problem that it has the capacitors, as they call it, they need to be replaced. Yeah, the Korg MS-20, that was the sound also from Nova, and this track which we had, this #1 hit, Nova Aurora, and the pan flute, I like sound you hear, I did with the Korg MS-20. And of course the sequence was done with the SQ10 by Ruud van Es at that time. So I made some, if I go here, okay, let me shut down if I play, because I just keep on derailing myself today. So if you go to synth leads, I have this Aurora lead. Oh, pan flute Aurora. I recreated that in bit and now also in bit 1. That's the one. It started with E. I played now in D. So that was done originally on the Aurora track we did in 1982. It went to #1 in the Benelux, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Was one of the, I think, the first instrumental #1 hit from a Dutch band, which I played in. And at that time, when I was 15, so back to the story, when I was 15, I was, of course, very happy with the Korg MS-20 with the SQ10. Later on, I did get a second MS-20 to do the solo. So I had a combination of 2 Korg MS-20 and the SQ10 with the switching board. The switching board, the original one, is somewhere lost, but I made a new one, and I think I have a little video about it on this YouTube. So at that time, the Korg range and even the Yamaha range were, I think the Yamaha were a bit more expensive, but the Korg range were really budget synthesizers, because picture at the end of the 70s, a Mini Moog was still very, very expensive, or an ARP 2600. I only can't dream about that. And of course, the Korg MS-20 has not this typical Moog sound, but it sounds good. It has its own sound, and it only tells you that it doesn't make any difference the gear you use. It's all about the guy behind the gear using it in a musical way. So now back about the story here on the right-hand side, you see then also the Take 5, which I purchased for on stage for replacing my Mini Moog as a lead synthesizer. It's absolutely brilliant. It's even 5-tone polyphonic, so it's a great performance synthesizer, because also of the fact that you can select a preset by hitting a button. So that one I used on stage. Ahead of that, I used the Little Fatty, but the Little Fatty has 2 little disadvantages. Is that it misses one slot, and one slot you need extra for making synth sounds and still have vibrato. So if I show you a sync sound, sync lead. No, this is sync lead. So what you need for sync is, and you see in the advanced panel, you can see that the envelope changes the tuning. of oscillator 2, which is in sync, because if I shut it down, the sync, it's up here, so it has nothing to do with tempo sync, but it's oscillator sync, synchronizing. So this is without the sync. What happens is oscillator 2 synchronizes to the start point of the other oscillator, and then if you do a pitch glide and you press sync, you get this sound. Well, if you do this with the little fatty, which, by the way, sounds fantastic, this synth is really a cool synth, but then you need to open the modulation wheel, because the modulation wheel controls this modulation of the envelope. And there's no second slot for doing something like that. It's pretty much a mini Moog with less controls in terms of the way of thinking how it's built up. So, and it also misses aftertouch, which I also love to use when I play solo. So that's the reason why I purchased the Take 5 after hearing some audio demos. And it's really a fantastic synth, sound-wise, but also on stage, because it's compact. You have very fast the access to the presets. It's absolutely lovely. So yeah, then you see an SH101, which I purchased 2 years ago back, because in the early 80s I sold some synthesizers because I was totally frustrated that I could not save a preset. I did get the Jupiter 8, spoiled with a Jupiter 8 in 1982, and that one I could save the presets I created for our band. But I did regret it, and lucky enough, I found it back even with the strap and the leather cord for playing it as a guitar. It's in mint condition. It's absolutely perfect. Happy that it's back, and I need to make a video about it, because I did some very cool things I didn't see and still yet on YouTube doing anybody. So I know a few little tricks with this synth I like to share. But yeah, time is sometimes a problem. Yeah, so going back to the Yamaha CS30, why did I purchase it? Because it was in my use, something which I always dreamed about. You know, I even saved the advertising. Let me see if I can pull that up. Where is it? Advertising. Here's the advertising, the original advertising from Music Maker. I'm not sure if I showed this also last week talking about it, but if I repeat myself or reiterate myself, sorry about that. You see, this from the magazine, and at that time, you see, as a young kid, I wrote down the price. See, a 30, 2850, 2,850 Dutch guilders. And you also could find it for 2,645 Dutch guilders. So I think you can translate this also to now, if you look at how value of money goes down, is that this synth would cost also now around that range. And I also always look the advertising. At that time, Yamaha had still a harder distributor in the Netherlands. So that's what happens. Then it's just like what I tell with people who purchase back their old motor, or they buy a car from the 70s because they always liked it, but you cannot. So the car is then, of course, without airbags, without ABS, but they still have something with this machine. So it's a luxury by far. So it gets a MIDI interface. So let me show, and then I opened it, and okay, this is wrong, the wrong one. Okay, let me see. I did open it. Here it comes. So a little bit synth geeked this evening, guys. A little bit synth geek. And here you see, I did open it, and here you see how it looks like. And I did not clean it. Here on the left side, you see it's a little bit dirty, but essentially, now it's cleaned, by the way, but essentially, it's amazing after 44 years. So it was, I don't know who was the previous owner, but he had, they took care of it. It was not in a in a studio which was smoked or with a high humidity, because high humidity really kills electronics. Then it starts to rust and you get all kind of things like that. So here you can see the board. It's the keyboard board, and so you see all these things. And yeah, and this is the layout. And I mentioned last week as well, it has a very typical layout, because look here in the VCF, you select the oscillator waveform, and in the VCA, you select the filter type. So it's totally different from any synthesizer I have seen as hardware in the way it built up. But it's very clever in some way. And let me play you a few notes. You don't see me playing, but that's the what you're going to hear is the CS30 with the two filters active. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so you hear it now. And what I did is in VCA, the first one, you can have both filters sounding, or you can say parallel also in VCA 2 that this one has a separate output. It's very very different in the layout. So you really need to see, how do they mean? And let me tell you one very clever thing, because here you have the LFO, and you don't see in the LFO, you don't see a waveform selector. And that's what I did very smart. They say, okay, you select a waveform in the section. So here in oscillator 1, for instance, you can see that you select here the waveform. So it's the same LFO, but you can have the waveform from the LFO goes multiple out. So the sinus goes out, the saw goes out, everything goes out. And you can select it here in the oscillator. So you can have in the oscillator a sinus waveform from the same LFO, and have in the filter a random or a saw up or saw down. And also with the envelopes, they did some cool stuff. Here you select the envelopes A, B, C, D, and E, and A is typical build-up. B goes then a reverse envelope. So if you select B in the filter, you got a reverse envelope. C, if you select C, you have a regular envelope, and D again is then a reversed envelope. So it's very clever. And the only thing, I had a little Windows 95 screen, Windows 95, this blue screen that I had when I looked first here in the filter, and I saw there the waveform selecting. Thought, that's funny. Yeah, and also here the pitch, the detuning is not in VCO 2, but in this section in pitch. So yeah, so you see, I'm pretty much a synth geek. This is the other picture I have, of course. Then you see here's the CA30. You see on the left side, you see the modular Eurorack with Reebach. This one I use also live, the Sequential Pro 3. Also very nice to do some live tweaking. And these boys on the left side I leave at home, because playing live, I play live with two laptops, but it's also cool to have synthesizer where you can switch to play with. So I have one laptop as a super synthesizer using MainStage, and the other one does the sequence stuff with internal software synths, drums, for instance with Punch 2, and via MIDI, it plays also the sequential. But these old ladies on the left side I keep at home, because they are so old and it's a bit risky to take them out on stage. So I only did that twice. The Minimoog I did take with me when we did the Klaus Schulze tribute, because Klaus Schulze always played on the Minimoog, its leads. And in my first concert after years, in 2019 it was, I had the Minimoog and the Jupiter 8 on stage, but I leave them at home now because they're too fragile and too risky to take them on stage. So on stage is this sequential Pro 3, which is absolutely fantastic. It has 3 types filters. I use the readback for doing some live sequencing with a dark time sequencer. And then I have on stage the Take 5 and the Korg Prophecy, which is a very nice synth with some very typical synth sounds. So that's currently my setup. The only thing you don't see is the Korg Prophecy and the SH101, which is down here. But I think the SH101 might move. Okay, so that's about the my synth geek character, and I should mention the ideas I had at that time run into our products. So when I was 15 and did this little switching board for the sequencer, well, that's inside. We started doing inside bit 2. So if I go here to the ARP, here it is. You can change the steps dynamically. And when we first did this, of course, I did try this, and then I told Jon, hey Jon, it is cool to have this dynamic, but when I move it, I'm very often on the wrong step. So what we added is then the catch up, where it catches up on even or odd. So you see something? That's nicer. Dog. And you can MIDI latch it, of course. Yeah, cool, isn't it? So let me see, because I was telling about talking about my synth geek character and then the synths I have in my studio. And not always used for making music, but simply because the Yamaha CS30 was always on my mind. Only took 44 years. Somebody says, photo burn. I'm a bit amazed none of your VST emulation of all this vintage gear. No, there's a reason for that, because I rather focus on doing new stuff. So to explain, for instance, with bit 2, if I may show you why I found this far more exciting to do new stuff, because we have the option to do new stuff. I mean, you see the CS30, fantastic synthesizer, sounds great, but has its limitation. And why should we limit us down on certain matters? So bit 2, for instance, has the cool thing to do all kind of sound. Also the classic Moogie style. Therefore I call it Attic Moogie, because it uses the Moog ladder filter, which is the first filter, is a Moog ladder filter, virtual. And then you can make really these cool mini Moog style lead sounds. And yeah, you see, with bit 2, we went virtual analog, but still you can do some extra stuff, and that's my fun part. I always like to do something different. Thinking out of the box. So what we did is with bit that you also can do a kind of phase distortion, FM type of sounds, simply by using two traditional oscillators. Only if you see here in the advanced panel, each oscillator here has its own LFO and its own envelope where you can do additional stuff. So I don't need to pick one of the other envelopes, but here inside the bit 2, I use the envelope in oscillator 1 to control the volume, which is here. I also could say control the tuning, but it controls the volume. It modulates oscillator 2. So if I would have it traditionally, if I was a real analog synthesizer, you could patch one oscillator into the other one, like FM modulation. Well, this is then phase modulation. It makes the sound less useful because it keeps on modulating. But if I use a envelope in this first oscillator which modulates oscillator 2, then I can use it, that type of sound. So you have far more options. So I don't want to limit myself down in terms of options inside. So somebody said, why don't you make then, if you like the CS30, if you like it so much, why don't you make then a virtual version of it? Yeah, for me, it would be boring to do, because I like to develop new stuff, guys. That's my thing. Just like here, so the ideas which came over from, let's say, the sequencer, what I did with the Korg MS-20 SQ10 came over in bit 2, but on its own way. So it's a different approach in creating a synth. So it is also typically, so you can do some very nice out of different presets, although it is still a basic virtual analog machine. So you find some very nice pad sounds, which are then, for instance, inspired on my Jupiter 8. And what did I do in my Jupiter 8? Jupiter 8, you had the combination of 2-layer 2 sounds. And what I always did to make the pad sounds is to layer and give one layer a bit less cut of frequency than the other one, and unpan it left, right. That made a very wide sound. So if you go here then in bit 2 to one of the pads, here you see 12 dB low pass filter. So this is really how I create a pad on my analog machine. Well, in the music, nobody will hear the difference. Believe me, I mean, I can fool anybody. And here you see that left and right have a little bit difference. You see the left, filter 1 is panned to the left, and filter 2 is panned to the right. So, inspired on what I did on the analog machine, it comes over in our products, but in a different modern way. Okay, that's quite a modulation. So that's about my thoughts and how we approach. And the same for a Predator 3. Predator 3 is very deep. It easily can also do sound from bit 2, but you also have here the option to do wavetable stuff. This is pretty much like sounds like a PPG. Yeah, well, it's inspired on what you can do with a PPG, but I took my own take on it. This XY here, you can record the movement. Oh yeah, that's also right. It has more polyphonic notes than the original Jupiter 8. Yeah, if you stack on a Jupiter 8 two, use lower and upper together in dual mode, you only had 4 voices. So yeah, some advantages. Okay, color blinds. Oh, somebody, color scheme of the text ribbon in bit 2 would consider making white. Okay, I didn't notice that people had some problems. So we have this, yeah, this ribbon controller. Also a good example, because ribbon controller. Yeah, what we could maybe do that you could pick a different controller, because I think some people with red have some issues on more bark. So that's also the ideas I have. So adding a ribbon controller is one thing, but then, and I must say, all credit to the coder John Iris, which is totally insane, this guy, in terms of coding. I asked him, hey, can we make note that it goes back tempo based? And that is what you arrange here. You can spring back tempo based. Of course, this one already came in the Delsane, but I thought, yeah, that could also be a nice ribbon controller. And you control down here, ribbon, you control that one here on which parameter you like to have. But yeah, it's an interesting idea. Maybe we should have on the back panel an option. I need to write that down. Where's my pen? Or I will not forget. I will memorize that. That you could have maybe the ribbon controller, the dot which you then hard have to detect because you are colorblind, to give it a circle around it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I will write that down. Don't worry. And that's a good idea. Down on the back panel, in the back panel on bit 2, we have some extra controls. You external MIDI control capture mode. That's also a very cool tool if you use controllers, that it only starts changing the moment you hit the parameter setting. So here we could have then a button called for a different type of because yeah, it's pretty, this ribbon controller is essentially, my first idea was to make a picture of a finger and that the finger goes over it. Maybe that would be an option to have, because essentially we did that with attention. So add plugin. Okay, I don't see it yet. I'm looking here. Okay, but it's noted. Rob, can you add a on-screen keyboard to Predator, a chord keyboard without black keys? Well, I think the size would be a problem because our plugins are pretty big. If the keyboard, sometimes you see that you can switch on and off a keyboard. What we did not figure that one out, how to use that in the coding. But I think it will be. I see bit is also, this is the 150% version, but I'm not sure if the keyboard is below Predator 3, if you would see it on a regular full HD screen. So if I open it here, I think I'm not sure which size I use here with Predator 3. Oh, that one is, yeah, has different 120, 133, 100, 200 screen. Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Oh, it's even more the text on the ribbon controller. Ah, well, so the text, I think maybe that you could not see this little dot. So the text on the ribbon controller, here on the right hand side, you have the option to do a few things. You can have a bipolar, and what is in the middle is simply does say the name ribbon controller. So here it says ribbon controller, and it has this middle dot here. If you say not bipolar, which is positive and negative, it goes to the left, and the middle part is gone. So it goes always to the left. So bipolar, I put now bipolar off, and you see it does say ribbon controller. That's all it does say. And bipolar, then you have this middle thing go. Even can go quantize back, so then it goes in little steps. It chops, chuk, 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 chuk. Yeah. So that's so that's one of the reason why I don't make remakes of cool analog stuff. And there are other companies who are doing that very well. So it's not my kind of cup of tea, as they say. Taxonic Audio, would you ever consider making your Protea samples available for Blue 3? Well, many of them are inside of it already. So in Blue 3, let's go to Blue 3. I think even more is inside of it. But because what I did with the Proteus is sample the pulse width modulation of my Jupiter 8, and from that I could create pads. But of course, in Blue 3, we have this built in as synthesis. We don't need to sample pulse width modulation because it's inside of it. So if I go bypass here, you hear the sound only with the... So this is, for instance, in the Proteus 2000 in my ROM, is this as a bass waveform. And then I use the features of the Proteus with the Z-plane filters to create all these sounds. But the samples are very often basic waveforms, and then I use the synthesis. So I think we last discussed this CRB synth. I think it's far more now inside Blue 3 than was all from the start in the once I want to search for one sound, but I'm wrong. Synth sounds. Okay, I lost track. Where is it? Here yeah, things like this, the diamond string, you will not find it, but you will find a sound which is similar to it in the... So what, for instance, is also in the... These cryas are most likely from my own samples, but what is new inside Blue 3 is this gong, which I sampled. So there's far more inside Blue 3, and the Beat Garden ROM, you will find all these sounds in Punch 2. So if I would go to Punch 2 now, most likely I mess up stuff here now. So this typical nice snare. No. I'm looking for a typical snare, but where is it? Well, I don't know where it is again. A typical snare which you hear in the demo. So a lot of the percussion, which the original percussion are also in Punch 2. So the Beat Garden feel Beat Garden ROM in EMU, the feel for that one you will find in Punch 2. And the Technosynth construction yard type of things, yeah, and all these synths essentially. So, but it's cool they create them again, the ROM. So if you have a Proteus 2000 or this range of rack modules from EMU, you can purchase them, these ROMs again, they are reissued on Reverb. Yeah, the size of the plugin with the keyboard, and then also shutting it on off the keyboard. We had this problem with the Albino 3 Legend, where the layer opened and closed in the original version, but in audio unit that caused problems. So we kept it always visible. Maybe some part of the some part of the code makes it possible, but we did not figure it out yet. NKS 2, no, there are zero plans for NKS 2 because it doesn't make any sense with our products. Because essentially, I showed the machine because you already have this option to have the dials and controlling the parameters. I don't know what we should add more. I think it's the NKS 2 is far more for the sample library, which people create for with the contact sampler. They need that far more than we. So I think so. Also, Go2-X, we're gonna release it hopefully very soon after Native Instruments did check it. We're gonna release it as NKS and will still be the standard NKS, and so not NKS 2. We looked into it, but we don't have the impression that it adds something additional to our products, because yeah, you can control all the pages already here, and you see we address some of the parameters already. So but we have then, once we release, we will have then the some very cool presets by Mark. I'm looking here for having Go2-X separate. Here we go. So the new banks, one is already available in the early bird presets on the homepage, which is the sound bank by Stavziski Status. But we have then the new is the Mark Satchel bank, and that one has a very cool sound, which is very famous in Netherlands. And what I found striking about this one is how warm and analog it sounds, because yeah, we use of course the codes which we developed in Bit also now in all our newer plugins. And dominator type of sounds, very, very nice. But he also has some he loves basses, and so very edgy. And that's the cool thing with Go2-X, that you have the option here to use different distortion types. So he has some very good basses. Very edgy. So your MIDI time based. You see here, he used the space grid, the points grid. So much cool things. Yeah, Photo-X, yeah, Native Instrument, yeah, the library, because everybody, all these sound designers which make stuff for classic or other like Have Your City, they all use the Contact library, and then of course, yeah, they are big on that. Became a standard if you create sample library to use Contact, and therefore I think the NKS 2 version is especially focused on them. dirty. So A10 is used here. So very dirty basses he created. So you're gonna enjoy that. You see many basses, but also some weird effect sounds. So Go2-X, absolutely an insane synthesizer. If you look at the price of it, that sounds nasty, isn't it? That's Go2-X R2D2. Cool FX, isn't it? But also some, we synth sounds, sequence. And you see the animation here. Well, the animation, if some computers which maybe don't have too much CPU power, we always can shut it off. In the upper corner, you can say, here, dial animation on or off. So if you annoys, you can shut it off. What keeps on moving is this one, the readout, oscilloscope. But of course, we also have the Clankweld bank already. There was one which... Or that was in my tagging. I came that in the tagging. So I need to tag the new presets. We have then, once this release, we also know then that the Go2 compared to Go2-X, Go2-X has over 400 new presets. So if I go back to machine, there I can select. And it's the case that what you select here are NKS presets. So it's separate on your computer. So let me see if I can show you this. Yeah, here you see the bank folder. If you go to Go2-X, you see in the documents, Go2-X, you see the bank folder. But if you go down, you see NKS presets. And these are the NKS presets, which I'm tagging now. So it's a separate format, which makes that the tagging is different and that you can add the parameters which you see here. So here we have the newer presets. Klangweld, I had some new presets. But I had a very nice spacey synth sound, and here you can search then on, here you click, let's see, synth. Yeah, on that, soundscapes. And here you open the user interface in machine. Yeah, it's a very nice sound. So yeah, you see, and then I need to add it here and add some tagging. We have some automated stuff, but still need to check it manually. So these are the new ones, Jamal Banks, the new presets, compared to the original Go2 preset. So, and here you can change the morph, so the morphing. Here's the waveform. So the parameters here, also the ARP parameters, they can be addressed. So that's the cool thing. As mentioned, there's only one disadvantage, is that you always need to first load complete control. In this case, I loaded machine 2, but complete control and then the plugin. So exchanging songs is a little bit more difficult. And yeah, somebody asking me about which keyboard. Yeah, that's a good one. MIDI chord keyboard for your plugins. Yeah, they're not expensive anymore, the keyboards. I even use on stage a EMU keyboard, which is a very old one, but that one also had aftertouch. The only sometimes the difference between the MIDI keyboards is that if I play here this complete control, it doesn't make any clicking sounds. Of course, you hear that you play the keys, but if you take then a more affordable MIDI keyboard, it might play nice, but it makes a little bit more noise. But okay, guys. Yeah, well, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And we catch up next week again. Next week, Thursday, another live stream. And then, yeah, maybe I already can tell when the NKS version of Go2 will be released. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up. Spread the word about the live stream. And we catch up next week. Let me see. Yes. Bye-bye, guys.